And then simultaneously getting this mother to the healthiest mom and also getting dad to the healthiest dad.
Yes, thank you.
There's so much research about the male partner's state of health and what impact that has on conception, on pregnancy. Like, so many of those factors relate back to the male. And what is the health of the future baby going to be? And that's also determined by both of your health.
Why am I not getting pregnant? We are missing out on opportunities to help couples conceive because we're not looking at the big picture. We're trying to help couples through protocols and automatic responses, and it turns out that every couple is unique. You can't help one couple the same way that you helped another couple. There's two whole bodies involved. In this episode, we are looking at nutrition. We're looking at male factor fertility. We're looking at egg quality. And with our expert guest, Dr. Aumatma Simmons, she is a naturopathic doctor, fertility specialist. She's been helping couples for years conceive holistically. We are really going to help you put these steps together in the perfect order. And once you do that, you can find that the secret sauce of getting pregnant is
the 4-step process: reveal, remove, rebalance, receive. And within that process, we can really customize and create unique protocols that are more individualized.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Mallory.
Dr. Aumatma is a naturopathic doctor who has advanced training in endocrinology and fertility and is really an expert in all things related to the woman's menstrual cycle and fertility. So we are really excited to dive in and really trying to make this a hands-on approach to fertility. Obviously, if you're struggling with infertility, then you want to make sure to work with a practitioner. So this won't be completely DIY, but I think there are a lot of things that you can do that are DIY, to make sure that you're taking good care of your health. So we want to give a really good overview of how to approach your pregnancy, getting ready for pregnancy. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. Well, so first, tell us a little bit about your own journey. How did you come to be this fertility expert? Because you started as a naturopath, taking care of sort of a wide range of issues. What was it that drove you to get this specialized knowledge and really focus on this patient population?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually married to this man who wanted to have children. And every time he would say baby, my uterus would literally scream, God, no. And so it was a moment in time that I really had to do some soul searching and figure out yeah, actually I really do want a child. I'd prefer to have a child than not. But I'm very clear that it's not him that is going to be the father of my children. So at that point, I was like, that's true. And that our fertility drops off of a cliff is true. Then I better get my together and figure out what I'm going to do about this.
Yeah.
So I spent essentially 9 months just researching every aspect of fertility that I could think of, mostly for myself, mostly how can I do this so that I can make sure that I can have a child when I'm ready. I'm going to be 42 by the time I find someone and I'm ready to married and ready to have a kid. So I really was okay, in that context, what can I do to preserve my fertility? There has to be something. And what I discovered as I was doing this research was just that, we have a lot of myths and misnomers about fertility that I wish I had known, because it would have definitely freaked me less out. Mm-hmm. And as I started sharing about those with the people around me, they were like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what? I didn't learn that either. How come no one's telling us these things? Then before I knew it, people were coming to me for fertility. And I was like, oh God, that's not my intention here. Yeah. I'm not trying to be the fertility person. I had said no to the first 2 people. And then the third one, I was like, okay, this is definitely a sign. And I scared her, right? I was like, this is going to be really expensive. And I have never helped anyone, so this is
a
really
great sales
idea.
pitch.
And I really just was convinced that this was not my path, right? I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be doing fertility. Before I knew it, she came back and she was like, you're the cuckooest person I've talked to, but intuition is telling me you're it. Like you're gonna help us. And she ended up getting pregnant after 3 years of infertility and three pregnancy losses, and she freaked out. She was like, "Oh my God, I didn't expect to get pregnant so quickly. I've been through so many IVF cycles. Like nothing has worked. Now I'm pregnant, so I'm freaked out that I'm going to have a pregnancy loss."
Yeah.
That was when I was like, gosh, like we really need to pay attention to that mental emotional side and like work on all of the layers before helping people get pregnant. We need to do this differently. Like we really need a different approach that addresses all of the layers of us.
Well, I'm so grateful you have. I think in our culture, it's sometimes easy to be like, oh, you're struggling to have a baby. Like we all know someone who's been struggling to have a baby. But when you're the one that's struggling to have a baby, it's everything. You know, it's a part of who you are, and it's part of how you see yourself. It becomes part of you and your partnership of like, why can't we get this together? And I'll share just a brief part of my story, and then we'll kind of dive in a little bit. But I had fertility issues. I got married in my mid 30s and then struggled to have a baby. And then just as we were getting ready to start fertility treatments, happened to get pregnant and then could never get pregnant again. So did fertility treatments, lost a pregnancy, had other fertility treatments, and now have three beautiful children, which I'm really, really grateful for. One of which was in my 40s. And so a lot of, like, I feel like I've had a lot of touch points in all of this. And in my own journey as an OBGYN, I had way more exposure to the conventional side of fertility than anything holistic, and really didn't discover sort of the holistic approach until I think I was pregnant when I met you. And so really didn't discover a lot of the holistic approach until I was already kind of invested in the conventional world. So I don't have that story where it's like, I found holistic medicine and then conceived spontaneously. But I have the opposite side of like, man, I wish I would have known something. Like, I think some people have it in their mind that there's some gold star that if you get pregnant without any additional conventional medical help, that you're better, right? Like that's more virtuous or something. And in my approach, I don't think we have to have it as black and white. But what I care most about is, what can we do to make you the healthiest woman and mother, carrier possible? Because that's going to help you have a healthier pregnancy, however you get pregnant. And it's also going to help hopefully translate into your health in the postpartum transition and your health as a mother. What is your approach along those lines?
Yes, yes to all of that. Like a lot of people come to me thinking that I'm going to say absolutely no IVF ever. And it's quite the opposite, right? Like I think that every couple is unique and they have different paths to get to that point where they're going to have a baby. But if we can shorten the amount of time that it's going to take to get there, that's valuable. And if we can make it more easeful, if they have to go through less IVF cycles, that's a win. That's a huge win.
Or no IVF cycles is also a win. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then simultaneously, like what you said about getting this mother to the healthiest mom, and also getting dad to the healthiest dad.
Yes, thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's so much research about the male partner's state of health and what impact that has on conception, on pregnancy. Like, are you going to have a super nauseous pregnancy? Are you going to experience preeclampsia, gestational diabetes? Like, so many of those factors relate back to the male. And what is the health of the future baby going to be? And that's also determined by both of your health. So it's so important that couples work together on their health and optimizing their fertility before conception so that A, they have an easier path to that family that they dream of, but B, they're also supporting the health of their future child in the process of it.
I am so glad you brought that up, because it's, especially being a woman who's gone through IVF and gone through that fertility journey, we just take on 100% of the burden, right? The man does one semen analysis, maybe a couple if he's not lucky, but he just does
Right.
one semen analysis. That's it. And then they say, oh, we checked him off. It's all about you. And even in a situation, I think coming from a medical perspective, I didn't take as much like burden or shame, I think, as some women do, but it's still really difficult not to feel like, oh, bummer, like, well, what's wrong? Like, what am I doing? What's wrong with my body? And it can also be really lonely and isolating for women going through this journey when the partner's like, I don't even really know what my role is. Like, I'm happy to support you, but this is all your thing. You know, you need to ovulate and you need to get your uterus in shape and you need to get your health in shape. And when we bring it as a partnership, number one, the health of both parties is key to a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby. But also, as we involve the partner, they also can share the journey together. And it's less of the woman like, well, I've got to eat this diet or I've got to take these supplements, and the man's over there, you know, like feet up doing nothing. You know, like we really want to make it a couple's journey. So I really want you to share your approach. I think so many people, as they start down this journey, get super overwhelmed because there is so much information out there. But it's all over the place. And so many people will be like, well, so-and-so told me she tried that. So I tried that and it didn't work for me. And then I saw this thing on the internet that said to do this. So I made sure that I never, ever involved this type of thing in my diet. And, you know, it's so critical because you so badly want that baby that you feel like I will do whatever it takes. And you end up doing this random assortment of things just to try to make sure you're leaving no stone unturned. So help us understand, how do you make sense of this? How do you take an orderly approach to this?
I think it's really important to kind of start with this understanding that each couple is unique on this journey, right? And if we take that as the founding context, then everything that we're doing should be evaluated from the lens of, is this optimal for them? Is this the right thing for them?
Yeah.
We absolutely cannot evaluate people from the context of, this is your label and this is your protocol.
Yeah.
Because even for something so simple as like PCOS, for example, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which 1 in 2 women that have PCOS struggle with fertility.
All the women with PCOS just said, like, what did you say about simple? It doesn't feel simple.
Maybe not that simple.
Relatively speaking, yeah.
Yeah. But they will often be put in this category of, okay, let's give you this medication and this supplement and this supplement and this supplement, and then you're going to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Then they come to us and we're like, well, but why do you have that PCOS, right? And it's really like, are we getting to the underneath layers that are helping us understand this person's unique journey and why they have this thing that they have? So for me, it's less about the labels, more about how do we approach this. So we have a 4R process called restorative fertility, and it's reveal, remove, rebalance, receive. And they're sort of in order, but they can also like flow differently if we need to, right? So reveal is getting to the root cause. It's really understanding this couple's physiology in a way that has not been understood before. It's going beyond the semen analysis and really looking at, actually, is this sperm optimal? But beyond that, what is your blood sugar level? What is your insulin? What is your homocysteine? Like basic things that everyone should be asking, but no one is asking.
Yeah.
And what we find in that process is most of the time, there are things that are going on the male side that are not being talked about, that have never been addressed, that even their PCP is not testing them for because they don't have any symptoms.
And they're young and healthy, right? They're young and healthy.
Yeah, young and healthy, exactly, in quotes,
Yeah.
because what we think is healthy is not always what's happening.
Yeah.
So this should be a standard of care that doesn't exist, in the sense that we don't have this idea of, can we prevent things before they start?
Right.
So reveal helps us really understand the full picture of both of these partners and what else is happening under the surface? If it's high estrogen, why is it high? Is your testosterone over converting to estrogen? Is your body making too much? Is your body not excreting it? There's so many layers of questions that really change how we're going to approach it once we know those answers. Mm-hmm. The second piece is remove, and remove is getting rid of all the garbage. That is the garbage in terms of toxins, which most of the people that work with us nowadays are already on it, right? Like everyone knows, take out the microplastics. Everyone knows, like stop
Parabens
drinking
and
out of
phthalates.
plastic
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like phthalates and fragrances and
Mm-hmm.
the basics. Everyone's got it most of the time when they're dealing with fertility stuff. But it's those things that are like, this is a stressor that we're not relating as a stressor. And it's things often that we can do something about. We're not saying go live in a bubble because that would be nice, but no one can do that. So we're always going to have some stress, but we need to address the stressors that are low hanging, that we can be like, oh, we could actually shift this and we get so much bang for buck. So those are the things that we want to address in the remove phase. And then in the rebalance, we're really looking at, we've got all of these underlying things. They're not really conditions yet. Those are the things that we want to help to optimize and rebalance in the body. So if we've discovered, hey, estrogen isn't clearing out as well as it should, let's get that clearance going. Let's get it processing. In terms of how we support the rebalance, we really start with that foundational thing and then go to the next tier and the next tier and the next tier, all the way up to the top of that pyramid.
Yep.
So when we talk about like egg quality and sperm quality, it's like the top of the pyramid. Mm-hmm. And that's where most people are going for fertility, right? They're like, oh, we got to optimize mitochondrial function.
Yep.
And yes, mitochondrial function is important, but if you're not sleeping, there's no amount of mitochondrial support that's going to fix that.
Yeah.
So really like thinking about it block by block instead of just kind of willy-nilly, like let's just support the egg quality. So that's the rebalance. And then receive is the mind-body component. So this is where like building the stress resilience, it's working on emotional trauma that we might have from previous. So if someone has had a pregnancy loss, if someone has been on the journey for so long that they feel like they're questioning their trust with their body, those are little micro traumas that are impacting the outcome at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So we have to address those things so that we can move into a different space where we're actually ready to receive this baby that is coming to us. And then in the receive phase, one of my favorites is control, and the kind of like high achiever that so many of us are. Yeah. And we all have this like tendency towards achieving and control that has done really well in our lives. Mm-hmm. But when we get to that fertility period, everything gets questioned because fertility is the opposite of that. Like, how do I let go of control? Yeah. And how do I let go of my timelines? And how do I just let it be? Yeah. Which is really challenging for so many of us. So those are the little like transformations that we're seeing in our process, is when women are working on this mind state. Yeah. Like the instant a woman says, I finally let go and I'm like letting the guy figure out when she's ovulating, and you're in the driver's seat, you're initiating sex when it's time to, mm-hmm. then we've taken this burden off of her.
Which is huge, by the way.
Yeah, like no woman wants to be like, hey, honey, when are you going to be home? It's time to have sex. Yep. Like, this is not what she wants to be doing. So when we take that pressure away and she can actually let go and release the reins, like things happen way faster. Yeah. Like men feel so disempowered on this journey because it is the female body and they're like, oh my God, it's so complicated. Yeah. But it's actually not. Yeah. So if they can have some education and learning about the female body in the process, mm-hmm. they can be back in the driver's seat. They can be back in control and they love it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, hell yeah, this is
Mm-hmm.
what I was made for.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the 4-step process. Reveal, remove, rebalance, receive. And within that process, we can really customize and create unique protocols that are
Mm-hmm.
more individualized. Those are the little like micro things that are going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And I wish more people would get this message, right?
Mm.
Like so many people on the fertility journey are like, "Oh, but my neighbor said, but
Mm-hmm.
this Facebook group said this thing." And man, if we had this system accessible to everybody, people would be on a path that's moving them closer to the goal instead of feeling like, "Oh, but I've tried it all and none of it worked."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, but.
Well, and making the things that they are doing count instead of doing 18 or 25 different things that maybe some of them are
Yeah.
valuable to really make each one of them a known. I think it's
Mhm.
just kind of a scary process because you don't want to miss out. You if you're doing these 3 or 4 things, you don't want to be like, well, but maybe it would work better if I did these other 5 things. So I think it's helpful to have a guide who can help you understand like this is what your body is telling us that you need. So do these things
Mhm.
and trust your body. Yeah.
Mhm. And do it in a step-by-step
Yeah.
way. I think
Mhm.
the other thing that a lot of people confuse is like, "Oh, I have a gut issue and an adrenal issue and a thyroid issue and egg quality issue all at once, and I need to get pregnant.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take all the supplements." And you end up, before you know it, you're like, if you think of supplements as a signaling compound for directions for what the body should do, then if you have 15 signals going at the
Yeah.
same time, your body's like, okay, well, I don't know which one you want me to do, so I'm not going to do anything.
I love that
Uh,
explanation.
yeah, so we really like we try to make it step by step. And so many of our clients will say, "Oh, but can't I do this thing? And but why does she have this other thing? Can't I do that too?" And it's like we have to just keep reminding them like you're in a process. You will get there when it's your time,
Yeah.
but you're not there yet. So it doesn't make sense for us to give you the supplement.
I
And they're
love
like,
that. So help us understand because I think one of the first questions that people come to and maybe one of the first misconceptions they have is that time frame. How much
"Mhm,
time does this take? Because of course, occasionally on social media you'll see the clips that like I worked with her for 1 month and then I had a positive pregnancy test. Like
right."
what is the expectation that you would give for a woman going on to this journey to consider in terms of that timeline of getting pregnant?
I think it can vary a lot, but in general, we find that about 4 to 6 months is a good average amount of time to invest in optimizing your fertility before you try again.
Yeah.
So, and yes, people do put a pause on their trying when they're doing the work with us, because a lot of times we're wanting to get the most targeted, most direct path, which will often mean you're taking something that isn't safe for pregnancy.
Yeah.
It's totally fine for fertility, but it's not safe for pregnancy. So we want you off of it before you start trying.
And this
And
is
then the
super
other,
hard for people to hear, right? Because they
it's
come
so
in and they're like, we've been trying. And you're like, great, stop trying and
yeah.
let's do these things. But it's so
Yeah,
important. It's so
it's
important.
so
I think
important. And
mentally too.
oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was gonna say. So believe it or not, the hidden benefit of that stop trying is allows them to have a small break after being on this cogwheel for so long, and that break is a really nice reset. And if they're able to, what ends up happening, and we've heard this again and again over the years, it's like when that desire had went away, that natural desire to have sex with your partner, when it becomes so contrived and controlled in the context of fertility, like taking a break from it and saying, you can only not have sex in this window.
Yeah.
Everything else is fair game. And you don't like there's no end goal. Like it's just your relationship and
Yeah.
your intimacy. And being able to have that for a few months people come back and they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't know like what a difference this fertility thing was making."
Yeah.
And being able to take that away for a little while was like, such a breath of fresh air. And then they're going back into it with the man being in the driver's seat this time. And it's a very different experience when he's taken charge and he's like, "Oh, you're ovulating. Let's have sex."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Wait, really? Okay, sure." And like it's a such a different experience. I can't even put words to that, but it's really magical when couples are like, "We were just having sex because it was fun and we didn't think we were going to get pregnant at all." And it happened. So the it becomes like the unexpected becomes very expected in my world. I'm
Yeah.
like, "That's usually how it
Yeah.
happens." You are trying to have a baby. That's the best way to have a
Fertility
baby.
clinic with a bunch of accidental pregnancies.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
they're doing something right then, because that's a really lovely outcome. I think, especially, I don't want to pit the conventional world against the holistic world, but the fertility journey of the conventional approach when you're going through IVF, it's not fun. It's not at all enjoyable, and I think the longer you stay on it, the more stressed you get about it, and then it's really hard to go into a pregnancy feeling like everything has just been taken out of you and now you're pregnant and now you don't feel good. And so it's such a lovely ideal, if we can say, like, let's just pause. Let's restore things. Let's just restore the elements in your health as a couple and as individuals that need to be restored, and just breathe for a minute. And as we're doing this, you might accidentally get pregnant at the end of it. And like, what a lovely process that is in comparison to timing and needles and blood draws and ultrasounds and vaginal ultrasounds and like so much poking
Yeah.
and prodding. And I'm
Yeah.
super grateful it exists, because that's how I have one of my babies. So I'm super grateful, but it's not
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
It's not great. So
Yeah, it can be tough and like it's okay if you're going into it prepared,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like if your body is ready
yeah,
for this marathon that you're going to be on,
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
But if you're in a marathon and then you're like, "Oh, I thought this was a 3-mile marathon, not a 10-mile
yeah,
marathon," then you have a whole different relationship with it. So
totally.
I think it's so helpful to be prepped to have your body in this like optimal place.
Yeah,
People are always like, "Why do I need to optimize my hormones? They're going to give me hormones."
yeah, yeah,
And it's like, well, if you optimize these hormones and your body's able to process and do the signaling that it should do with these hormones that are communicating what they're communicating, then when they give you the hormones exogenously, you are going to have a different response
yeah.
than someone who doesn't have that training.
Yeah,
Like having training wheels.
you've already gotten your body 80% of the way there. They just have to take you the next 20 instead
Right.
of starting at 10% and they have to take you 90. Like, it just
Yeah.
works better.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey there, listeners. Just a quick break to tell you about something that could make a big difference in your life or the life of a woman you care about. Here at Uplift for Her, we specialize in integrative women's health, offering comprehensive support for every stage of life. Whether you're navigating menopause and need expert HRT advice, looking to shed those stubborn pounds, or seeking for help with your mental well-being, we've got you covered. We combine the best of traditional and functional medicine with personalized health coaching and dietitian support here at our Salt Lake City-based clinic. We ensure that your unique needs are met with the care and expertise you deserve. At Uplift for Her, we're here to help you feel your best inside and out. Ready to take the next step in your health journey? Visit us at upliftforher.com or give us a call today. We have services available for those of you living in the state of Utah and some services available for those of you outside of Utah. Now let's get back to the episode. Okay, so I want to lay out the rest of this episode because I think there's so many good things still to talk about. I want to make good use of our time. So I do want to talk about male fertility and sort of what are some things that the I think most of my listeners are women. There are some men in there, but maybe the women can share with their partners. What are the
Yeah.
top things that you would say for the male partner just to start doing from a lifestyle perspective of optimizing fertility? And then I also want to get to a couple examples, maybe a little rapid fire about like, what about this more unique situation? What are some top things to consider and know about? So let's start first with that male fertility and preparation. Are there some specific
Yeah.
things that they should be doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes, you're right. Male and females can do this. The most amount of research is around alcohol, marijuana, and cigarettes. They have the most research outside of everything that they can take. Those three things will get the most bang for buck. So, if they're doing any of those three things, they have to stop.
And I just want to point one thing out there as far as understanding, because I think it's so interesting and helpful in terms of the overall construct is the ovaries and the testes, they're sort of the canary in the coal mine, right? They're the first, one of the body's first warning signs that the body is taking on too much, whether that's toxic burden or damage to the cells. Reproduction is they're the most, some of the most sensitive cells that we have to damage and to unhappiness.
Mhm.
And so it's our hormones and the male hormones, the sperm, that are some of the first things to start to lose
Yeah.
quality. And we want really great quality participants in
Yep.
fertility. So
Yep.
that it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. On the male side, also like adding, if they will move towards a more whole food based diet, so avoiding things that are uber processed and integrate more diversity. It's really, really important for your gut that you have good like microbiome diversity. And then if there was a third thing that was like absolutely foundational, I would say sleep would be really high up there. Sleep is going to impact your like all kinds of things that we don't think about. Everything from hormones, of course, to the
Mm-hmm.
rejuvenation that's happening in sleep that doesn't happen any other time of the day. So if we have a high toxin burden, we have high stress, we have a lot of oxidative stress, which is our internal body stress. All of those things are being helped to be better in our bodies with sleep and what's happening.
Yeah.
So if we're not getting good, healthy, quality sleep, that's going to really impact whether or not our fertility is going to be in a decent place. And then
Okay.
the last thing I would say is toxins. And we talked about toxins a little bit earlier, but I think a lot of men maybe haven't caught on to this, which is the microplastic in so many things is
Hmm.
going to impact the hormonal function as well as the sperm health. So that's the male picture. And then
Mm-hmm.
on the female side, I would say very similar things. Like I think for women, coffee has a little bit more research as well. So for men, not as important to quit as long as they're getting good hydration. For women, it might actually be beneficial to cut back to like max 1 or 2 cups if you're going to drink
Mm-hmm.
coffee, and then cutting out alcohol, marijuana, and cigarettes. Same, same.
Mm-hmm.
And then eating a well balanced diet, making sure you have lots of a variety of vegetables, different colors is a good way to think about it. And then removing toxins and optimizing sleep. And for women, especially, sleep is the foundation or the circadian rhythm. So our sleep wake cycle is the foundation of our female hormone system. So the
Mm-hmm.
circadian rhythm is really, really crucial. And if we don't have that, you can take all the supplements and herbs and maca in the world, and it's not going to fix the circadian rhythm, which is going to continue to be the body saying that you're in fight or flight mode. And any aspect of fight or flight mode, it's way more important for women because we are going to be the ones that are protecting that child, right? It's the
Yeah.
protective
Yeah.
mother energy that is at the core of whether or not you should reproduce. And if you're in a state where it's not safe, your body's literally saying, not safe to come right now, like please don't.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
And
Whereas if a male perceives fight or flight, then it may just turn on their their fight or flight
yeah,
mechanisms to go fight
yeah,
tigers. But it's that the mother's body, the woman's body that's going to say like, once that fight or flight gets to me, it's gotten through my
yeah,
partner, my defenses, like, let's not have a baby yet. That's a good
yeah,
point.
yeah. So really,
And
the
I will say, as much of, we talk about women's health versus men's health, and it is very different. And I want to empower women, but I do think it's worth acknowledging, like, there are some parts of women's health that just feel a little unfair, like it's one of those things that you're like, well, why do I have to be the one that's like doing all the breath work and he doesn't have to do it? He can just go like fight tigers at work and I have to be home meditating and
yeah,
being zen. And like, we can talk about the social aspects of it another time, but I just want to point that out because it's easy as we talk about fertility. When you talk about fertility, you really get back to the origins and sort of, we talk cave
yeah,
women, right? Cave
yeah.
people of like, this is how the body was built. And there can be some parts that maybe hit a little funny of like, well, that's not fair, but we just stick with the biology, but we can comment on I just want to bring that up because I think we do think about this as we listen of like, well, I
Another
guess I'll
thing
do
for me
that.
to
But
have to do,
yeah,
right?
I
Yeah,
know, I know. And so I just want to bring it up, even though we don't have a great answer for it.
yeah, yeah. I have lots of theories about it, so maybe a different
Yeah. Oh, we'll
episode.
have to talk about it. Yes. Well, so wonderful. So we've gotten a framework. Was there anything else you wanted to add on to women, or was the stress component that last
Yeah, I
component?
think that stress component is unique from the female side, and I think
Yeah.
it's energetically like men don't have that safety response in the same way. They are the
Right.
protectors. They are
Mm-hmm.
way more capable and safe in the world than women are. So we have our
Mm-hmm.
physiology is just more sensitive to
Yep.
the safety or not safe response. And we think it's important to be aware of that. So a
Yeah.
lot of men can feel like they're in fight or flight or they have high levels of stress and their sperm are completely okay. And I
Yeah.
believe that that's part of the reason is that
Yeah.
their bodies are better adapted to stress, to fight or flight, to be the protector, to be the person that can handle it. Not that they should, not that I'm not trying to normalize it for them, but it's
Right.
just more,
Just talking
yeah, yeah.
physiology. Yeah, their bodies are a little more resistant to that for that reason because when they sense danger or threat, their bodies should work better,
Mhm.
right? Their bodies get turned up. And ours do too, but also as we start recognizing fight or flight, our bodies, I use the word deprioritize, we kind of push some of our other processes more to the
Yeah,
background.
yeah,
And we see our bodies are just physiologically more sensitive to that threat I think for good
yeah,
reason, from an evolution
yeah,
standpoint, at least.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I also want to draw attention to if any of our listeners are not actively trying to have a baby, I also think this is just how you take care of your hormones. And so, as we talk about, I see patients who are in their teens and their periods are all messed up. They have painful periods or, you know, really terrible PMS. And then I have perimenopausal patients or postpartum patients who are like, what do I do?
Hmm.
It's all the same.
Hmm.
Restoring fertility is one of the best things that you can do for the health in
Yeah,
general because fertility is that first, it's that pinnacle, right? Our bodies will not prioritize reproduction unless everything beneath it is really going
yeah.
well. And so as people say, like, how do I have an easy perimenopausal journey? How do I, help my daughter's periods? It's all the same
Yeah,
stuff. It's the exact same
yeah.
things because once the hormones are balanced for fertility, you can do anything. You're set. You're ready to go.
Yeah, and working on your fertility and supporting your fertility, it's moving your hormones as close to optimal as possible. Like, I wish I had this information when I was going through irregular periods, huddled over in bed in pain for days, every single time.
Like in my teens and
Yes,
20s.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I've been there. That was my life. And yes, absolutely. The way to support all of that hormonal dysfunction is the same way that we support fertility. And even
Yeah.
if you're not trying to get pregnant right now, they're all signs that are pointing to why you should work on your fertility right now and
Yeah.
get into that optimal and then stay there till you're ready to have a baby.
I do know the initial response to a lot of people to that is going to be like, so you're saying this is my
Yes.
fault? Like you're saying I should just like be different, or you're saying, and it's so easy in functional medicine and holistic medicine to come to that awareness, but I will call people out on it and say, just pause for a second. Just ask whether it applies to you or not, because all of these things are just tools.
Yeah.
And when I sit with a patient, patients want to see the lab test that tells us where the problem is, and then we give them a pill or a supplement or a food to fix that. And everyone likes that because that means something was wrong with their body, right? Something was wrong that was out of their control, so to speak. But if you tell them like, well, it could be the way that you're perceiving yourself. It could be self-love or compassion. It could be, the way that you're recovering from stress. We take offense to that and we say, don't you dare tell me that I'm doing it wrong. Like I'm doing the best that I can.
Right.
And that's where we breathe and we say, I believe you are doing the best that you can right now. Let me help you explore it. Let me see if there's opportunity to heal more deeply. And that's actually what I love about the healing journey, because if you're healing right, you're not just healing your tissues and your cells, you're healing your whole being.
Yeah.
And that's really when people live much happier, healthier lives. So anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, gosh, it's such an important point, and it's important to realize that, at least me, but I don't think any practitioner comes into this space with like, you're doing this wrong.
Exactly.
But it's like some of these links or awarenesses are just things that I've seen over the years that even the women are not necessarily like, these are not the words that they would use to describe it, but they're seeing the shift happen.
Well, I love that you bring that up as the example of like, we as practitioners, we're really just trying to help you feel better. We're really just want you to be happy. And sometimes we see things that are harder to address and harder to pull out. But at the end of the day, it's not about us being like, we're right. You were a control freak and that was like interfering with your psyche. Like, we don't care about that crap. Like, we just really want people to feel, to reach their goals, whatever their goals are. When they come to us, our job is to uncover and figure out and recognize patterns from seeing, from 20 years of meeting women and meeting patients. And like, that's what we get to do. And it's super gratifying when people when they reach their goals, not our goals, when they reach their goals. So I love that you bring that up. Well, we're just about out of time. I don't know if we can do this justice, but we'll see how you do sort of rapid fire here. What are your like top 3 things for these conditions that may be a little bit more unique from the foundation that you've already mentioned? So the first one is advancing maternal age.
The short rapid fire version.
I know, this is like a whole podcast in and of itself.
Okay, so I'll keep it really simple. So advanced maternal age, the best research thing, it's CoQ10. It has a lot of research on specifically women of older years, over 40, that are struggling with maybe diminished ovarian reserve. CoQ10 is it. There are probably so many other things that we can get into, along with, is it really your age? But that's a longer conversation.
Agreed. What about PCOS? Kind of a big, dart to the dartboard. What's your main dart?
The best dart is Myoinositol plus NAC plus Folate.
Okay.
Altogether.
I love that. You're very, very simple. I love that. And we are totally oversimplifying this, but I think it's sometimes helpful to simplify it for a minute. Male fertility, anything you want to add there for maybe someone whose semen analysis is not quite great or testosterone is not quite great?
If the semen analysis and testosterone are shot, selenium. And if testosterone is okay, but the sperm is not so great, CoQ10.
Love it. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it at those 3 conditions because it does get really complicated. I think mostly, if I can recap a little bit, as couples are dealing with, why am I not getting pregnant? Or even thinking about getting pregnant for that matter. I think you mentioned really focusing on a whole foods diet, cutting out alcohol, certainly smoking, marijuana, maybe coffee for women. and then supporting other decrease of toxins, whether that's microplastics, fragrances, phthalates, parabens. I know in your clinic, then you do support people through supporting their detox pathways and helping. So we're diminishing toxic exposure, but then boosting. And I think those 3 steps, besides the detox per se, those 3 steps people can and should do on their own. Like, that's great. I love it when patients come to me on that because it just saves time for them.
Absolutely.
So whole foods, decreasing smoking, alcohol, maybe coffee and marijuana, and then decreasing exposure to toxins. And then your next step is to really start with labs and to say, what are the lowest hanging fruit that are obvious? Things like nutrient deficiencies, thyroid dysfunction, poor gut health, vaginal microbiome. What else is in your top, like that you're in your initial panel that you're looking for in that reveal?
That like hormone metabolism stuff is like game changer, must do.
Like a Dutch test or like looking at the balance of hormones. Anything else I missed right there?
And then just like insulin, testosterone, hormones in women, liver function, all of those things also on the female side.
And then that's in that initial Yes, and that's in that initial reveal lab evaluation. And then your next step after that is then to remove, which hopefully if they've done it on their own, then you're just focusing more on that detoxifying and really supporting the body's excretion of whatever is still left around, and then also removing other quote unquote toxins of stress and, other issues, maybe lifestyle issues that need to be addressed there.
Yep.
And then that next step is to rebalance, sort of just get things in order, fix whatever you found in the reveal, support the body to heal, whether through lifestyle like sleep and stress and food and movement, and then also supplements, maybe medications. And then that receive is my favorite part because it's totally hippie and I love every minute of it, is preparing us as future mothers and as couples to get ourselves in the right mindset of letting go of that control and being able to just prepare to receive a pregnancy. And I think that step alone can certainly be combined with IVF, but it's so absent in the IVF process. It becomes so mechanical and so lab oriented. You're literally taking an egg and taking a sperm and putting them together and shooting them up inside your uterus. Like it loses all of that. And so really focusing back on like, how am I? Who am I? What am I being? Who are we being? And being able to receive this pregnancy. Did I miss anything in that recap?
You got it. That's all the steps.
I love this. I love this. Fertility is is so near and dear to my heart because of my own experiences, but also because it is such an emotional journey. And it's so nice as a practitioner to be able to support people on that journey as they're feeling sad or sometimes ashamed or broken or unclear of where to go next. And it's so nice to be able to help them through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else that you just want to say at the end of this episode? Any final statement or recap when it comes to fertility or just your own personal heart message to women that you'd like to share?
I think I would love to have women just realize that you can do this. Your body can do this most of the time, outside of like genetic things that you can't do anything about. Your body can do this. And if you are struggling actively, like find a practitioner who can help you. Dr. Valerie Fabuzzi, I can help you. But like there are so many of us that are just like here and ready to be of support to couples because this is a growing problem. And I think that the space that we're holding or the light that we're holding is really, how do we do this in a way that empowers the health of mom, dad, and baby, right? And there are very few practitioners that are looking at it from that lens. So really get support and like people always wait, right? Like people will always say, oh, I'm going to try this thing first, and then I'm going to try this, and then I'm going to try this. And like, if your goal is to do this the fastest way possible, find someone who can support you in doing it the fastest way possible. So yeah, I think that is probably the biggest thing to say, because like as much as you could totally do this on your own. It could take 5 years or 10 years, right? And like
keep chipping away and keep figuring it out and trial and error.
Trying this, trying that. It's like the value of what a skilled practitioner will provide is time. And that like taking your life back and putting you in the place of like getting to that goal so that you can live the rest of your life, right? Like this doesn't have to take forever, but so many people just wait and like, oh, I'll just try this and try that and struggle without the need to struggle.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. I know we could just sit and talk shop for hours, but we'll stop for now. Tell our listeners where they can find you.
The best place is Instagram at Holistic Fertility Doctor. Send me a message. We're really active on there. And within the next week or so, we will have a chat, like a live clone chat with me on our website. So you can go to holisticfertilityinstitute.com. If you're just like, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, then that'll be available on our website.
That's amazing. And what states do you see patients from?
So we don't actually, we have a different relationship with our people. It's not a doctor-patient relationship where we're diagnosing and treating anything, but more of a coaching relationship. So we do that everywhere, anywhere.
Great. Wonderful. And they can find that on your website. Thank you so much. This was super fun.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. A huge thank you to our guest for sharing their insights and time with us. We are grateful for the incredible support from our sponsors and to all of you listening. We couldn't do this without you. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing on your favorite platform. You can find us on our website, upliftforher.com, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you love to listen. And if you found value here today, please share this episode with someone who would benefit from it. Leave us a comment or give us a review. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. Thank you for being part of our community. Stay tuned for our next episode. Lastly, this information is for educational purposes only and not intended to be medical advice.